Welcome back. This is an Aleks teaching homework video on identifying errors in the solution to a basic quantitative problem. So this is a glimpse into Mr. Spencer's life. This is what Mr. Spencer does every time he grades your papers. So what they're doing, they've given you a problem, and then they've given you a proposed way to solve that problem. So they've got a first step, a second step, a third step, a fourth step, and finally the last step. If you look at this and you're like, everything is correct, then I want you to put no mistakes. If you look at this and there's a mistake, you're going to mark which one is the first mistake. All right, so let's do this one together. You've got a problem here. It says the velocity of an object is the distance traveled per unit time. Okay, so that's a definition. The velocity of the object is the distance traveled. I don't know why distance is s, but it is. Remember, s is not time, t is time. S is, in this case, distance. So velocity is distance divided by time. That's the definition of velocity. Okay, so you're going to start there. Suppose that the velocity of the gliding bird is measured to be 262 centimeters per second. Calculate the time it will take for the bird to travel 4.8 meters. All right, so you're looking at each one of these steps and saying, is it correct? And if it's not correct, make a mark on the first mistake, where you went wrong the first time. Okay, the first one says, the first step, write down the definition of velocity. Well, rate times time, vt equals distance. Okay, so rate times, this is how I learned it in grade school. Rate times time equals distance. Rate is velocity. Velocity times time equals distance. I don't know why they use s for distance, but they do. Now solve for velocity, because they're giving you a velocity. That's why you have to start with velocity. So we have v equals distance over time. Yeah, so far that's good. All right, so I wouldn't make a mark here. Now, the next step on your proposal is to solve for time. So I have v equals s over t, solve for t. Now, how do I put t? I need t on the top, so I'm going to multiply by t. So I'm going to have t times velocity equals distance. Now solve for velocity. No, solve for time. V is in the way, so I'm going to divide on this side and divide on this side. So I have t equals s over v. So that should be correct. This one is backwards. So here's my first mistake. So that makes everything else wrong. Once I make a mistake and I start pumping in numbers, my answer will be wrong once I make a goof. So this is helping you to see, like, to stop yourself or to identify an error before it starts. So you would make a mark here, solve for time. That's your first mistake. Okay? Very, very useful, very useful. I hope you can do well at this.